Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I'm Irene Kaushansky. I'm the K of the KB team in Toronto at Keller Williams Portfolio Realty. And I am absolutely delighted that you've chosen to spend an hour of your time with me. The session that we're going to be talking about this afternoon on follow-up and nurturing seems to be a challenge for a lot of people, as witnessed by the number of people that actually registered for this course. So I'm definitely going to be sharing with you what has worked for me and what continues to work for me. It started working for me 30 years ago when I was an individual agent, and with tweaks and updates, certainly today with our small team, it's still very, very important, and it's where so much of our business is done throughout the follow-up. One thing I do want you to remember is these are my processes. They work for me. They may not always work for everybody else or to work for you. The important thing is to figure out what it is you're going to do, create that plan, and know that you're going to be sticking with it. It may not be the same things that I'm doing or we're doing or somebody else is doing, but just like what is the best lead generation strategy, it's whatever you will stick to. So it's the same kind of thing here. What is the best follow-up strategy? Something that you have created and put in place and that you will stick to because it works for you. So just rewinding a teeny tiny bit to give you an idea of my history and our team structure today. I really did start 30 years ago. January 7th, 1992 was my first year in the business. And obviously I was a solo agent then. We didn't have a lot of the resources that we do now. We were still using MLS books. We were still using cue cards for contact information for clients. And obviously the world has changed and our systems have evolved, but the important thing is this is still a relationship business, and your relationships with your clients and other agents are what's going to make the difference between your success and lack of it. The B of the KB real estate team is my husband, Philip Brown. He's my business partner. He is the OP of our office. So although he does some sales on the team, his primary obligation and responsibility are the 85 agents in our market center, and to help them grow and succeed and achieve what they want to achieve. We have a small team. We're also very blessed in Toronto to have a very high average price point. So our service level is very high. I know we have agents here from all companies and all across North America, I think. So I can certainly share with you what's happening with us in Toronto and have you apply that to your local market. We have one other agent on our team. We hire agents, not just buyer agents or listing agents. Her name is Samantha. And then we have 4 full-time admin support people, listing concierge, listing manager. We're very, very listing heavy. A marketing and sales support partner, and a client care manager who is our administrator. And there's my phone going off in the background. I'm sure somebody will get it. For those of you who don't have your cameras on, if you have the ability to turn them on, just know that it's a lot easier for a presenter, hey Sasha, to actually see faces than photographs or blank screens. Hey, you guys, okay, so those of you who are driving, be careful, please. I don't want to be responsible for any accidents. Yeah, so if you do have the ability, either now or a little bit later, to turn on your camera, it will be great to see your faces. So for those of you here that aren't with Keller Williams, I will absolutely do my best to make sure that anytime I speak a Kellerism or I speak something that is Keller Williams lingo to translate, so that for those of you who aren't in our company, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So I know we were having people jump on at different times, and what I was asking a little bit earlier while we were waiting was to get some input from you on what your biggest challenges are with following up and nurturing, and if that's something that we aren't going to cover and I can add it to our list, I absolutely will. So is there anybody who'd like to share anything or to let us know about your struggles?
For me, I would just say, Irene, it's letting go and getting leverage to handle follow-up for me. They say suck less, right? So do what you suck at less. So somebody needs to do it, and it's not going to be me. So that's kind of.
I'm not covering that in this class today. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. That's my struggle.
Well, you know what? All kidding aside, it is a good point. And if it's something that we can help you get a little bit better at, so that you don't suck as much and can do it yourself, it's certainly something that that will benefit you. But you know, the reality is there's certainly inside sales and outside sales agents that you can hire that can do this for you. But you know, what I find is sort of from the personal perspective, it's certainly when you have your people in your database, you are the best one to be in touch with them. Right? Anyone else?
I have a problem with when a lead is not the warmest of warm leads. I don't do the follow-up for as long as I should to get them to where they need to be. I eventually drop the ball.
Well, therein lies the crux of so many follow-up fails. Right? And actually the staying in touch, Sasha, is definitely something we're going to cover for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I tend to focus in on what's right in front of me and forget about the ones that were in the past. Even if they were like a month ago, they're not right in front of me. They're not the ones jumping up and down and raising their hand. So it's creating a system to remember them and to follow up with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Me too. I have problem with sometimes I'm using writing down like old fashioned, and sometimes I'm using Excel. But anyway, anything back, I tend to forget it and cannot focus to, let's say, more than 10 clients together.
Gotcha. Understood. So here.
Yeah, something I struggle with is like sometimes I feel like if we follow up too much, it kind of gets like too much on the recipient. So where do we draw the line? Whether like, let's say if someone is saying I won't be ready to buy like maybe for the next 1 year, then how often do we follow up with those people? Because we don't want to kind of impose ourselves on them.
Yeah, that's a great question to hear, and actually one of the big ones that I will cover. So overall, what I would like to share with you is who, and that is who I consider a lead, why and when. Their motivation will determine your frequency of contact, and definitely what kind of questions to ask. And you know, the important thing is questions. The more questions you ask, the more you know. You need not be afraid of the answer. You need not be attached to the outcome. The more questions you ask, the better it will arm you to do what you need to do. Mindy, is your hand still up, or was it up again? You're on mute.
Yeah, I was actually starting to type it in the chat, but so the other thing is that sometimes with the DTD2, which is supposed to be that follow-up system, I might not get through even half of my letters 1 week. And then it's like the next week, gee, am I carrying them over this week, but then I'm ignoring the current week's letters? Or do I just let them go and then I'm going to get back to them in 3 months, which then becomes 6 months?
So for anyone not familiar with the DTD2, it is a system created by Keller Williams that organizes letters that you call regularly. And Mindy, since you brought it up, I might as well mention it now, because if we start calling the A's, we might not often get to the Z's. If we start with the Z's, we may not get to the M's. So this is a system of calling letters together in a regular frequency so that you do get to everyone. So we're calling our A's and W's 1 week, we're calling our B's and E's another week, and those kinds of combinations so that you do eventually hit the whole alphabet. But Mindy, you know, truth be told, I will often not get through all of my letters as well. And as good as I believe I am at following up, it's never perfect, you know, and I bet you by the time this session is done, I'm going to learn at least one or two things from one of you. We're always learning. So it's never perfection, right? We can't get stuck in that being perfect, because if you do put yourself into that little pigeonhole, you're not going to do anything. It's, you know, paralysis of analysis. Carolyn.
Hello.
Hey.
I do recall someone saying about instead of sending out 300 letters right away for the whatever yeah. Sending out so many letters, to send out, maybe you send out the A and W's the week before, so that way when you follow up in the proper week of A and W, your letters got there at the time you're making the calls. So maybe just shifting how, you know, which ones you send out, then that way you'll be able to make the ones you actually mailed. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, that's terrific. So that sort of takes into account following up after a mailing piece, which is great advice. If you do too much at the same time, you may not be able to actually do the follow-up that you need to do. Meijun?
Hi. I'm terrible for the follow-up. So I always do whatever comes to me. So I lost a lot of opportunities. I really want to know from the basic thing, how do you set up the follow-up? From the letter or from the phone call? How can you be that successful? Do this thing. I really want to learn it. Great.
Terrific. Rebecca?
Yeah, I just wanted to share one thing I found with the DTD2 is I'm going by first name, because otherwise I end up calling like all the Browns on the same day, whether it's husband, wife, and by name, then I can touch the family more times. So that was just something that I do differently.
Well, and you know what, just going back to what I had said initially, do what's going to work for you. Do put a system in place that you will follow. And if it means, or if it's created by you for you, it means you will use it and you will put it to work for you. Thanks, Rebecca. Zahir?
Yeah, so is texting a good way of follow-up? Because I've noticed like a lot of my clients or potential clients, like they always reach out to me via text, and like sometimes they don't mind like texting for like half an hour back and forth rather than getting on a phone call. So
damn those millennials. Yeah, that is actually one of the things that I'll cover for sure. Thank you for that. So guys, I may not be able to keep a close eye on the chat. So if you have a question or if you want to say something, just put up your digital hand, because you're going to pop up to the top of my screen and I can call on you. Rebecca, is your hand up again, or was it just up from before? It's down. Okay. All right. Thank you. So we've covered the who and the why and the when. The how will be how you communicate, which has been a question from a couple of people here. And the really important thing, and I think one of you at least has mentioned it, is it's the closing. It's when do you ask for the business? Because we want to do care calls, we want to see how people are, but we also want to be listening to the opportunities to set up an appointment or to actually move somebody closer to wanting to do business with you. If you ask too soon, you're going to seem aggressive and pushy. If you don't ask soon enough, you're going to miss the opportunity. So that's something that's really critical to remember as well. You aren't following up just for the sake of following up. You're following up in order to be able to convert that prospect into a client. So that's something really important. Okay, so let's talk about the who. And the reason that I find this is important is when I started in real estate, the pervading knowledge at the time was just put everybody in your database and stay in touch with them. If you only have 100 or 200 people, that's probably not a bad thing. But once you start getting into the thousands, oh, your cat, Mindy, You only want to be staying in touch with people who want to hear from you. Now, there's going to be a little bit of a caveat to that we'll address in a minute, but I used to just put everybody, anybody that I met was a contact, and I would put them in my database, and I would call them, and I would call them, and I would call them. And I didn't take the time to find out, A, are they actually moving, right? Seems basic, but that's really important. And B, if they did move, would they actually use me? And I spent years following up with people that were neither of those things. So either they were never moving, or they had brother, sister, cousin, somebody else that they would have already been committed to, and they'd never, ever in a million years use me for any real estate. So regardless of where the lead comes from, whether it's open house, door knocking, internet lead, anything that comes in, your ability to ask the questions at the beginning will determine, do you actually stay in touch with these people? And if so, what are you going to be sending them? How will you communicate with them? And how frequently do you want to be communicating with them? So that's really, really important. And I teach door knocking classes, and the most common question is, well, how do you get people's contact information? Well, you ask, but you only ask when you know that there's going to be some kind of future with you and this person. So if they want you to call them or email them, they will give you their contact information. But you have to earn the right to ask for that. And if, again, so going back, if you ask too quickly, you're gonna put them off. If you don't ask at all because you're nervous, then you've lost that opportunity. So that's a little distinction there that I think is really, really important, because it will help you in the future, help you down the road. So other than getting a referral or having somebody call you and say, I know you sold a house on my street, I want to sell my house and I want you to come over now, which are always amazing types of leads, the majority of people will need you to follow up with them. And they will need you to put a system into place that will have you touching them in one way, shape, or form. Excuse me, that didn't quite come out right, but you know what I mean. Having some kind of contact with them on a regular basis. Now, so here, your question about, can you text? Absolutely. So you want to be doing the call, mail, text, email, call, email, mail, text, whatever. All four of them, you want to be staggering them. Your question about having a half-hour text, it drives me nuts. Anything more than 2 or 3 texts back and forth, you know what? How about we pick up the phone? Sounds like we should have a conversation, right? Texting is efficient, and you can definitely get your point across or get a short answer quickly, but your communication comes from communicating. And although you can ask a question via text, any sort of face-to-face, whether it's on the phone or Zoom or obviously in person, that's the best way to go about it. But yeah, take the communication off text or email as quickly as you possibly can, keeping in mind that, it's not, you don't want to be too fast and you don't want to be too slow. Liliana?
Thanks for taking my call. I have a situation and I need your expert opinion. And so I attend an open house in Blue Mountain. When I picked up the signs, there was a gentleman driving on the street and stopped to talk to me. He invited me over because he's thinking he's 82 years old and he wants to move to a retirement center. I offer the information of the retirement center. I went and did a listing presentation, and then he's supposed to follow up with me. During our conversation, he spoke with the daughter, which the daughter said, oh, so Dad, when are you listing? So on. He called me 2 days after saying, I'm not ready to sell, my wife is in the hospital, and so on and so forth. Now, knowing the situation that he is in, and he knows that he needs to move because his property is amazing. And I offered my husband help because he needed some handyman. So my husband went over. My husband said, why don't we buy this property because it's amazing. Now, how do I go? Do I follow up with him saying we want to make him an offer? Do I say I have a buyer?
You know what? We could probably have a half-hour conversation about that, which will take us through the rest of the session. So why don't you and I sort of address that down the road, because there's a lot of landmines there, and I don't think this is the place to have that discussion.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, but you've got my email. You can reach out. Arturo?
Yes, thank you. My question to you is, what's your take on voicemails on non-met leads? Effective, non-effective, avoid it, use it?
Very effective. Don't avoid it. One of the questions that was emailed into me was, how long do you stay in touch with somebody when they don't respond back to you? And the answer to that is, it depends on where the lead has come from. So if you're calling somebody very, very cold, Arturo, so let me address that a little bit. So I always leave voicemails because people might listen to them. If they don't, that's too bad. But if I don't leave one, they will definitely not hear it, right? Sorry, what that was a two-part question, and I don't remember what these.
Like if there were I'm specifically talking about non-mets, like an internet lead that comes into your CRM. Yes. from a paid ad, and they click on it, and then you're following up on that. Those are harder than usual to get a hold of them. Do you leave voicemails? Do you don't leave voicemails?
Absolutely, voicemails, texts, follow up with email if I have the email address. Hi Arturo, it's Irene. You asked me to give you a call, or you requested some information on one of our listings. Just wanted to let you know there's a real person behind here, not a chat bot. Give me a call. Follow up with a text. Call again. Follow up with a text. One thing to remember, that whether it's not Mets or Mets, even if it's somebody that was at an open house that said they're going to do something down the road, or a past client you're trying to get connected with, it doesn't matter who it is. Just because they don't respond doesn't mean that they don't hear you. They just might not need you right now. And the only time that you delete somebody is if they tell you to, ask you to, or if you see their house come up as an estate sale.
No, and that was brilliant what you just said. Like, I'm just following up just to let you know there's somebody behind this phone, not just about. I mean, that's brilliant. Like, that just worth the whole thing right now to me. Thank you.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So just sort of to continue or to finish that piece up, you might not hear from somebody for years and years and years. Keep calling, keep emailing, keep texting unless they tell you to stop. We had a listing about 1.5 years ago. I first met the woman door knocking 25 years before that. 25 years. She stopped calling me back after the first year. But she had said to me, I'll eventually move, so stay in touch. So I did. And she, out of the blue, never responded to anything. And then out of the blue, emailed and said, sorry, I know I haven't been getting back to you, but I've been getting every single one of your emails. I get your voicemails. I follow you on social media. I have been doing a little bit of stalking, and now I'm ready to sell, and I want you to come over. It's worthwhile. Sandra?
Hi, Irene. So going back to the how, because I know that you were breaking it down and kind of reeling back you back to where you want to go. You were talking about call, mail, and text. Yes. Do you count social media as a touch? Like if you have them on social media and you interact, you like, you comment their post, do you count that as a touch?
I would count a personal message. So whether it's Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, a personal message where they actually where they will hear just from you, not a big post. Or
so even if you comment on, let's say, I don't know, now it's graduation time. So let's say that their son is graduating and you comment and they either answer you back like, thank you, or even just like your comment, you would not count that as a touch. Or would you?
Yeah, I mean,
just one and one.
Are we really counting, or are we just making sure that we are
Okay.
communicating?
All right. So just one and one.
Right.
All right.
Yeah, when we're in bold, we count the contacts. So somebody responds back. I think somebody just put something in. Yeah, there's Louise. Somebody responds back to a call, voicemail, or text, and that is counted as a contact. But in real life, do you care if you contacted somebody 10 times or 12 times? Probably not.
Okay.
You just want to make sure you're staying in touch. Louise, did you want to say something else, or was that it?
That was it. Just that it's a two-way communication, not I send a text, but when they reply to it, or you send a DM and they reply to your DM, then that's a two-way. So it's officially bold, counted as a contact.
Exactly. Yeah. So when we do bold, we're in bold. But other than that, just make sure that you are actually communicating. Thanks, Sandra. So the how, I know that paper and cue cards and Post-it notes have in the past been a method for keeping track of clients, but it is no longer a useful method. And regardless of what you're doing, whether it's Excel or a CRM of some sort, we're not going to get into the types of CRMs because that's a whole other 3-hour conversation. But again, going back to use what works for you. Use a system that you like, that is easy enough for you to put it to use. We just at the end of last year switched from Top Producer. I was on Top Producer from the time it was on floppy disks. There might be some of you on this call that don't even know what a floppy disk is. But I just stuck with that program. It worked for me. It worked for us until our team started to grow. Top Producer unfortunately did not keep up with changes, and it certainly wasn't great for us as we expanded. So we have, because we're in Keller Williams, we have moved over to Command. But what you use, it does not matter. It just matters that you get something that gives you the functionality that is going to make your business work for you. And that's the important thing. And we are using Command quite a bit now, so I'm excited. I'm excited to be fully, oh, look at you, Mindy, showing me you still have a floppy disk. My goodness. Yeah, I guess we cleared out a little bit more. Okay, so why and when? Motivation. Digging for motivation. When you know the motivation, you will be able to communicate better. I always loved Cody Gibson's line, which was, I will match my communication to your level of motivation. I don't want to call you too much, but I don't want to forget about you. So a good question, you don't want to ask somebody how much they want you to communicate with them, because they'll say, leave me alone. But digging for, okay, so where are you moving? When do you need to be there? And if they tell you, I think Sahir also mentioned it. So what if they're moving in a year? Whatever time they give you, cut it in half. That's going to be your mental time for them. So if somebody says I'm moving in a year, say, okay, well, it might be 6 months, might be 18 months. What's important about that year for you? Sometimes it's something that is really keeping them from moving prior to that time. And sometimes it's just a fabricated number. And keep in mind too, people will often give you answers to questions that they believe are right at that very moment, but lives change, things change. Somebody said they're moving in 3 months, might not move for 3 years. Somebody that said they're not moving for 3 years might be moving in 3 months. So you're never going to be able to catch absolutely everybody. But when you have the quantity of people to be in touch with and you ask the right questions, you can improve the quality of those relationships, and it will naturally increase your level of conversion. So labeling and tagging, that's always a challenge, right? And, Marcia, thank you for, I think it was Marcia and Arturo both, who have different plans for different groups of people in their database. Now, you don't want to be so personalized that you have a hard time keeping track, but absolutely, the way that we communicate with our referral partners, our out-of-area agents, is very different than how we communicate with our database. It's very different how we communicate to the agents in our own market. So having those groups separated is very, very important so that you can tailor your content to them. I don't know if we're even going to be able to touch content today because we do have a lot of other material, but that might be something for a session down the road, because that would be a very, very rich conversation as well. So even once you have your database categorized, you need to make sure that your system for staying in touch with people depends on when they told you they would be moving. So for me, and keep in mind, this is me, you can take it and steal it, or you can adapt it to whatever works for you. So when I meet somebody who is going to be moving at some point down the road, I will label them a nurturer. So my hot nurturers are 6 months or less, or they've said they're moving in 6 months or less. My warm nurturers are sort of 6 to 24 months. And my cold nurturers are 2 years and above. Yeah, 2 years and above. On top of that, I have my sphere, who are either my friends or just other people who say, I'm never moving, but I love you and I would be happy to recommend you. That's a really good question to ask if you do have some kind of connection with somebody. Not so much at an open house, because people that are coming to open houses typically do want to move, but door knocking, for instance, or meeting somebody at a networking function. John Anthony, I know you're not moving anytime in the near future, but let me ask you this. If somebody that you knew and cared about needed a realtor, do you have somebody to recommend to them? And then they'll say, oh.
I feel like I have like family friends, but someone who has like a trust behind the reputation, no. But it's kind of just more word of mouth, I would say.
Right. So I meet John Anthony at his door. He says, I know some realtors, but I don't know anybody well enough to be able to confidently recommend them. You know what? I really appreciate that. And I would also appreciate an opportunity to earn your trust to be that agent that you recommend. Is it okay for me to just send you periodic market updates, let you know what's going on in the industry, let you know what we're doing so you can see how we operate to see if you'd be comfortable recommending us? How does that sound?
Yeah, come on in.
Right? So don't discount people who say they're not moving just because they're not moving. We also have a list of, we haven't figured out a proper name for them. I think we're just going to call them our VIPs. And they are people who either have referred business to us or continuously refer business to us. And those are the people that they'll say, I'm never going to move, which isn't true. Everybody eventually has to sell their house, but they think they're never going to move, but they'd be happy to refer us. And we have quite a few people in our database that do just that. I've known them for 10, 20 years. They've been in the same house. They've sent us lots of referral business. Will they use us to sell? Hopefully. But in the meantime, people have the opportunity to refer much more frequently than they move. Right? If somebody sends you 1, 2, 3 referrals a year, they're not going to be moving 3 times a year. Right? So I'll go over my call schedule first, because really that's the most important piece is the calling, or at least if you can get a response by text here. So calling my hot nurturers, my goal is to do it once a month. So Mindy, I actually do the DT/D2 within my categories. So when it's my time to call the hot nurturers, I will do that. My warm nurturers, my goal is to call them every 3 to 4 months. And my cold nurturers, I call twice a year. And the cold people, they may be 3, 5, 10 years from moving, but you always want to be there. Right now through COVID, we've just had a much better opportunity to be in touch with care calls. And like James Shaw has told us, from this point on, all your calls should be care calls, right? Unless you're trying to get somebody to set an appointment, in the next few weeks. And then my sphere and past clients, my goal is to call them every 3 months. I don't quite get to that every single every single period. But I have that as a recurring activity. So I don't put it within their contact entry on my GPS and 411. Okay, so here I'm calling hot nurturers. Every 3 months, I'm calling my warm nurturers. So I will just pull up the group en masse and go through them until I finish them. That make sense? Yeah, cool. I will text definitely if I can't get a hold of somebody. Our email touch program is pretty robust. We have 2 different groups. One, we actually send our newsletters and our events, really just one communication a month. And then a second group who's more of our listings group, we send those pieces of communication, and then we do videos of all of our listings. So we send those to them as well. And organizing those 2 groups is a little bit trial and error. We have had people unsubscribe from the listings emails. I will never let an unsubscribed request go unattended. So if somebody unsubscribes, I will either call or send a personal email saying, hey, you know what? I saw you unsubscribed. Sorry, didn't mean to send you too many emails. Did you not want to hear anything from us at all? Or did you just not want to get an email a week with all our listings? And they'll say, well, no, I like your newsletters, but you know, I'm not moving. I don't want to see all your listings. Great. So we put them into the category where they get 1 email a month. So I've just turned a complete unsubscribe into somebody who just doesn't want to hear from us as frequently, which is a big distinction. So if you get unsubscribes, make sure you don't lose the opportunity to get in touch with them. Louise?
Thank you for all of this. Are you tagging them accordingly? Like, do you have like a hot nurture tag, a warm nurture tag? Okay. So then I find that I'm good at initially tagging, but not graduating the tag, right? Like for instance, your cold nurturer tag will eventually become a warm and then a hot. So there you have a system for revisiting that.
It's called calling. Because well, you know, I know it sounds funny, but that's when you find out if they're going to be.
No, but I mean, yeah, the call, but then you like consciously change the tag. Like I'm not. I recognize that I don't update my tags as often as I should.
Awareness is the first step. That's great. Are you, Louis? Just come off mute again. Are you calling when you're at your computer in front of your database?
Yes.
So then what happens? Why is it that you don't do that next step?
Because I have the archaic pen and pencil or tablet and pencil. And then at the conclusion of my legion, I, in theory, would update the database. So there's room for improvement in my systems.
Sure. So I will make notes as I'm talking to people, like with their category open. And if there's an opportunity to either move them up or.
So you bypass this altogether, which is much more efficient. Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes I'll move them up. Sometimes they go from cold to let's make an appointment. Sometimes they go from hot to warm and then eventually to cold and then eventually to maybe sphere because they say, you know what, I changed my mind. I am not moving. So I take them out of the nurture category and put them into sphere. Give that a try without the paper, Louise, because you're probably, you're definitely missing out on opportunity.
Creating more work for myself.
You are creating more work and you're also likely not getting to as many people as you could if you were typing. Arturo?
Thank you so much. Yes. And without thinking of going into too much detail, Irene, and I know that the database of somebody like you who's been 30 years in the business and somebody like me, for example, who's been just a little bit over a year in this business, it's not the same. Maybe your database is going to need more categories and it's evolving, right? Mm-hmm. But would you say that it's fair that a basic categorize without getting into detailed tags, right? You're talking about hot warm, cold, sphere, and vendors. That's a good pillar in your database, or are we missing some categories that you will suggest to have?
You actually mentioned something I had not mentioned. We call them our preferred professionals, but they are essentially your vendors and trades. So we do have those categorized separately. We actually call them preferred professionals, but in there also, they are typically either a sphere or a past client. That's the piece that you missed, past client.
Past client.
So yes, they're either one of three nurturers, they're sphere, past clients, and out of area agents. That's it. 6.
I came up with 2, 4, 6, 7, right? Because you put agent, hot, warm, cold, sphere, preferred professionals, past clients, and agents.
Yeah, the preferred professionals, we don't call those regularly. That's actually, was it Jim Martell? Who was looking for somebody else to do the follow-up. The preferred professionals, we're actually creating a whole program around that. And we are working on creating an inside sales division that will work those contacts for us.
Thank you.
Louise, did you want to say something else? No, okay. Thank you. So the calls and texts, obviously, they do need to be supported by a bigger marketing piece. So we are prospecting-based marketing enhanced. At the end of every year and getting towards the end of every quarter, I will sit down with the team and we will figure out what are we going to be doing for marketing to support our prospecting. So do we have an event? You know, a lot of you know we have our skating parties. I have, we're finally after 2 years, we're going to be doing our end of summer party again for past clients and A-listers or VIPs. That's something that we do the first Saturday after Labor Day. I have a geographic farm and I do little micro events with the ladies in the farm. We're looking to add a gents event that my husband will hopefully be hosting, but little micro events. We are planning a shredding party. We are going to have a wine event. So that kind of stuff we put into place with as much notice as possible. And then, you know, we have Red Day. We had teal pumpkins one year for Halloween. All of those things we set up ahead of time. So we're not scrambling every month to figure out what to send to clients. Now, I know Jean Rivers has some great advice that you should be sending out one buyer focused piece and one seller focused piece every month. We haven't quite graduated to that. But one of the other tags that we do put in for everybody that goes into the database is, are they a buyer only? So first time buyer. Are they a seller only? So either a senior who's not going to buy again, or an investment property owner who may not ever buy again, or are they buyer and seller? And it's much easier to do that as you put people in the database than going back retroactively and trying to do it. So for those of you who might be just new to the industry, that's something definitely to keep in mind, because it's very handy if you just want to send out a piece for first-time buyers, you pull up just the buyers. Or if we want to send out a piece to sellers because the inventory is low and we're trying to get them to list, and we're talking about how many buyers there are in the market and how much competition there is or has been, that's not necessarily something you want to send to a first-time buyer, because they're going to get nervous and freaked out. So it's really nice to have that categorization as well. I think one of my questions that came in was integrating a smart plan for an 8x8 program. So for those not in the KW world, 8x8 is a touch plan that we put into, or we consider putting into place with a new lead. So you meet somebody and it's 8 touches in 8 weeks so that they don't forget who you are. So I got to be honest with you, we have tried many different versions of this, and it is very difficult to do it. I think one of my questions was, how do you do it so it doesn't sound canned? It's difficult. It's difficult to personalize things. And one of the things that I was noticing is even being soft in my approach, it really is a lot. It is a lot. And on top of that, they're getting our emails. So we really were, I was feeling that we were over communicating. So the 8 touches over 8 weeks, we have phased out. What I like to do now is I'll meet somebody, I'll send them a note card with either a business card or a fridge magnet. If it's a senior, definitely send them a fridge magnet. A lot of other people don't like fridge magnets, but you'd be surprised. Then do a follow-up call. Hey, I know you're not moving. I sent you a card about a week ago. Did you receive it? Yeah, I got it. Great. No, I didn't get it. Oh, let's see. Let's give it another few days. Maybe I'll call you again. Call again. And then after that, it really depends on who the person is, where they came from, and what their motivation is. So if somebody says that, I might be ready to buy or sell in 6 months, I will do my best to set up an appointment, even though that is a longer down the road, because you never know when somebody says 6 months because they think it's 6 months, but they might be ready to do something sooner. And, Mindy, to your question, if you set up your CRM so that you are regularly calling people, you will know that when you get past your right now people, you will have other people that you will still need to be in touch with. So you're always sort of circling around and sort of cycling through so that you don't have anybody fall off. Does that make sense? Maybe. Yeah. Okay. Very good. The other piece that's really critical, and it goes back to looking for an opportunity to close. So Louise was saying, she doesn't always move those people up in the right way or in a timely fashion. So you do want to keep your pipeline as a focus. So your pipeline are those people who you're either doing your best to actually set up an appointment with, or you've met with them and they haven't made a decision. So the pipeline is something that's separate from that nurturing system. If somebody's in the pipeline, I'm probably going to get to them at least once a week, if not more often. Because if I'm trying to get them to an appointment or I'm trying to help them make a decision, I can't wait a month, 3, or however long it is, to actually contact them again. So the way we have our pipeline set up, and again, in opportunity, we're learning how to do it in opportunities in command. It's really critical to get people into the pipeline so that you know what you have potentially coming up. In Top Producer, there was the dashboard with new and engaged leads. And we were using that to figure out, who hasn't been followed up with, and then who's been followed up with but hasn't been ready to transact. In Command, Opportunities helps us do that. But honestly, you know what? Get an Excel sheet. Like, your pipeline is never going to be massive unless you have a massive, massive team. So whether it's 2 people, 5 people, 10 people, 20 people, the people on the pipeline are the ones that are going to be the most important to you. So even if it means putting them in a notebook or something like that, if you don't have the CRM to do that, just create something for yourself that you will regularly be able to look at and make sure that you don't drop any of those more hot leads. So it's a matter of paying attention to who's right in front of you, who's potentially ready to transact, while you keep everybody else either on the middle burner or the back burner. And the challenge is getting into the habit of making sure you reach all of those groups, because there's potential for business everywhere. And you don't want to be, I think it was both Mindy and Zahir were saying, you don't want to be so focused on the now that you miss the opportunities. Because those people that told you they're going to do something in the future, with the right questions and with the right market information and education, you may be able to help them move their timeline forward. So you're not going to motivate them, in Shift. Say you can't motivate people, but you can aid them. So you can help them with the information that will have them make a decision that this might be a better time for them. They're counting on you. They're counting on your knowledge. And, you know, there's some people that can't move and shouldn't. And there's other people that can and should. And they may not know where they're at. They may not know which group they're in. So they might not think that they're able to move, but with your information and your questions about their situation, you might be able to help them understand that they could. Conversely, they might be, you know, raring to go, and by putting the right information in front of them, they may decide that that might not be the case for them, right? Arturo?
Sorry, thanks again. So my question is, do you particularly, do you incorporate this calling to all your different categories that we talked about? Do you incorporate this periodically calling into a smart plan, let's call it, for general, whatever, DRIP smart plan? Is that part of a smart plan? And if it is part of a smart plan, how many different smart plans you have based on the different categories of your database? Do you have like 15 different smart plans based on different tags, or do you have a more of a general smart plan that has just general touches in different frequencies for different categories?
So because I created a follow-up system before we had smart plans, I don't actually use smart plans. Because
so what do you use?
My smart plans are all up here.
I mean, I believe that you're a smart woman, but
I appreciate that. What I would say to you, Arturo, is because you haven't been in the business for that long, because you don't have a massive database. I mean, I've got over 2,200 people between the past client sphere, and those, like, I've culled that. Those are people that do, for the most part, want to hear from us. For you, you have the ability, and you know, again, for those not in KW, smart plans are just plans that have been created in command for any type of dripping or contact or anything like that. So I would say for you, Arturo, you could, if there's not a smart plan in the command system that works for you, you could create one. So maybe you create a hot nurturer smart plan, and you attach that to a new contact.
Okay, so you don't use this, you don't use smart plans as part of your follow-up system?
I personally don't.
Okay.
I personally don't. But honestly, there are so many different incarnations. There's so many different types in there that if you plowed through them, you could probably find one that would work for you. Or you can customize one that kind of works, but not 100%. You could customize it to what you want to do. Here's the thing. There's the need to balance automation with personalization, right? Because if you just automate things completely, people know and they feel like they're just getting a canned presentation. If you personalize it too much, it's not scalable, and it's way too much responsibility on you. So you need to find that balance of automating without making everybody feel like you're just throwing up marketing all over them. Sandra?
This is something, because I actually had the same question myself of when command started to come out, than Arturo did. And I don't know if this will help you, Arturo, but start basic. Start with the that campaign of like birthdays and anniversary, like home anniversaries. At least you have those 2 touches a year per person. That can be, those could be your personalized, and then the home anniversary, you can still remind them. And then, emails, you can continue, because the campaign for birthdays itself, you're already touching that person 3 times in the same fashion that Irene was saying. It's a letter, it's an email, and then it's a phone call. So if you start with basic, you're already touching everybody in your contacts 3 times, at least just by the phone, by their birthday. So that's something that because I was getting overwhelmed as well, because putting systems in practice and having the habit of using them can be overwhelming, more when we compare with somebody that has 22,000 people in their contacts and you don't, right? So that's why I was like, I need to go basics and I need to go small so I can actually master one thing at a time. And that's what I did. So I don't know. I thought of that when Arturo was asking the question.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for that, Sandra. Try to just give me a second. Creating the habits. I think it was Lisa, right? We're talking about creating the habits, and you know, we were hearing. Actually, it was just this morning on the Pivot Shift call. The taking action is a habit. So you need to create the habit of getting into action. Just like you can create your systems for follow-up, once you do them regularly and they do become habitual, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to stick with that program than if you're not doing that at all and you're sitting here thinking, oh my gosh, how do I even get started on this, right? So creating the plan for yourself and putting it into place, time blocking, honoring your time block, and making sure that you got to be lead generating and put time in your calendar for the actual follow-up, because that's going to be critical. Right. And somebody asked about the system to remember to follow up. No system. The system is meant for you not to have to remember. So you should have something pop up to say, this is what you're doing today. Don't count on your memory. Our memories are not perfect. Right? Even if you have a plan in writing, it's often not perfect, but at least if you put that in place, you don't have to count on memory, because your memory will always fail. And then you get busy and then you're going to forget things completely. So have that plan so that you can follow it and it'll work for you. So here.
So how soon would you follow up with someone who, like, you went for showings with, placed a couple of offers and didn't go through, but then they're like, we want to take a pause from the market, analyze the market, and I'll get back to you when I feel the time is right?
Really good question. I will not wait for them to get back to me. Especially if we had been looking actively, I will still keep an eye on the market and just do a, hey, I know you're on hold, but I saw this and I thought of you. Because you don't want to be completely radio silent, because you might miss an opportunity, right? If something's changed in their world and they either decided not to get in touch with you, which of course is unfortunate, or they just got sidetracked and they got distracted and they ended up doing something else with someone else. I would definitely, though, when somebody does say, I want to take a break, dig down and ask as many questions as you possibly can, and then ask, okay, so I know that you do want to take a break on this. Of course, the question is, what do you want to wait for? Do you want to wait for prices to keep going up? But that's, you know, besides the point. When would be a good time for me to check back in with you?
Yeah.
Ask them. You know, sometimes they'll tell you. Louise, yes, our pipeline is electronic. We do have, we still have whiteboards downstairs that we write on, but we're doing our best, especially as the team grows, to have everything in command so that everybody has access to the same system. And the appointment section, I'm still getting my mind wrapped around the stages and then the phases. So the stage of appointment gives us a really clear vision of who we've met with and what the possibilities or what the opportunities are for gross commission income there. It's still, I mean, it's very much a work in progress. We've imported all our contacts into command, Louise. But because the information didn't transfer 100%, it's now Bridget manually going between the two systems and making sure the command is as updated as Top Producer was for us. It's painstaking and it's really, really important. Balance, automation, personalization. Thank you. Thanks, guys. All right. Well, that brings me to the end of what I wanted to share with you. I would love either some more questions or maybe just in the last couple of minutes, some ahas. You know, we have that in Keller Williams Speak, agents helping agents, something that maybe you learned that somebody else would benefit from hearing. Louise?
Did I understand that you only have like not even 10 tags?
Main tags.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yes, I think one of your questions was, one is buyer, one is seller, one is buyer and seller. So either they're selling and buying down or selling and moving up. But no, we have tons of other tags. Like we still have, so we have the people who get all the listings, the people that just get once a month marketing, and the people that get hard copy. You know, there's some of our seniors, they either don't have email or they don't want to read their email. So they get their communication by snail mail. We're working on, so we have investment property owner, builder. There's a lot more of the detail for tags, but those are the main groups. And that's how I determine the frequency of follow-up.
So where would an investor fall in that group? Because they would essentially.
It depends. It depends.
It's a case-by-case basis situation.
Yeah. Yes. Do they have more than enough properties and aren't planning on buying anything again? In which case I just keep them in sphere. Or do they want to buy regularly? Then I put them in hot nurtures. You know, it really depends on what their personal situation is. Arturo?
Thanks. I just wanted to share my biggest aha of this afternoon. Because like for me, like my goal was like, you know, I wish I could get like my follow-up systems and my database into a place that is just set and automized and systemized and just ready to go on autopilot kind of thing. But when I looked and I look back and I see somebody as successful as you, Irene, and with 30 years in the industry, and you're continuously evolving and looks like you're always changing and looking for better ways to do things and stuff like that, it makes me realize that I might not actually get there ever. You know what I mean? Because there's always going to be something to improve, something to do, right? So to a certain point, it makes me feel a lot better that I'm not where I wanted to be in this autopilot kind of system, because maybe that's never going to exist, right? So that was my big aha. And thank you again for doing this and taking the time to do this.
That's awesome. Cool. Thank you. I appreciate that. Sandra?
Quick question, and I think I know the answer, and it might be dumb, but you know, when you said that you were following Gene Rivers about the one buyer-focused piece and then the one seller-focused piece, and then we have the buyer and seller. So when it's a buyer and seller, do you just send the same twice? Like buyers only get the buyer piece, sellers only get the seller piece. Do your buyer seller gets one in one, or is it something in particular that you combine both things? Like, I don't know if I'm explaining myself.
No, I know what you're asking. So no, it's not a completely separate piece, but then it's going to depend on where is more of the focus.
Okay.
So if somebody's a buyer and seller, I wouldn't send them something that's geared to a first-time buyer.
Okay.
Right? Okay.
Thank you. And thank you. Yes, everything. Thank you. Like everything you do, it's great. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Rebecca?
Yeah, Irene, this has been great. My biggest aha was the unsubscribe, calling instead of taking it personal, like, oh, well, you know, subscribe. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
That's great. Yeah, and you never know when you can uncover an opportunity there. For sure. Lisa?
I just want to say, by hearing you, you really affirm that it really is a journey and we're works in progress. So, you know, like I'm always thinking it out or how I can refine it out, thinking it's a destination, but you really reaffirm that really it is a journey, and just kind of refine, you know, almost like an A/B test. Okay, great. You know, chunk it down. the small pieces. So those are my ahas. Thank you.
That's great. That's terrific. Thank you for that. Jennifer?
Hi, thank you. So much great information. I love the comment that you said about marketing being prospecting based and marketing enhanced, and having a marketing plan to support your prospecting. For me, that is very intentional and purposeful. So it helps me with my planning to be more intentional and purposeful in my prospecting. Thank you.
That's great. Oh, my pleasure. Louise?
Oh, many gold nuggets, not the least of which were the scripts. So if the recording is available after, I will truly be dictating each and every word of the script, putting it in our system. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. That's great, Louise. Guys, thank you so much for spending your time with me. I've put my email in the chat for anybody that doesn't have it. Find me on Facebook. I have lots of room in my friends list still. So I'm happy to connect with you, and please feel free to reach out anytime if there's anything that you need that I could help you with either now or in the future.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
So much. I've got pages of notes here.
Amazing. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Irene. You are the best.
Oh, thanks, Liliana. Oh, you know what? Since you're here, did you?
Yes.
Yeah. So your question was, so you met with him and he's not ready to sell yet? Just repeat your question for me.
Okay, so he's 82.
Yes.
He told me to provide him a CMA because he needs to move into a retirement center. But
hang on. I'm going to stop the recording because for anybody that is watching this, they may not actually want to hear this. So let me sign off. There we go. Thanks for watching, guys.